Got this 2000 Honda Civic LX. The left rear door lock isn't working properly right there. It's not popping up and down. Sometimes it is, but most of the time it isn't. So let's go see what we got. Let me just hit the door lock, see what it does. Go up. Yeah, you can see front one's working consistently. That rear one worked a couple times and then it stopped working. But I can hear it. And look at the front one, doesn't even want to work now either. This thing definitely has door lock issues. Yeah, looks like most of these door locks aren't working. But we'll concentrate on this one right now. Alright, first thing we'll do, come in and get that screw right there out of the door handle. We'll get this door handle loose. We'll just go in there with a regular Phillips. Get this screw out. And then we should be able to slide the handle forward and then it'll pop out. And we'll get you a shot. Alright, right there. We're going to have to pop that little clip off over that rod and lift the rod out. Then we'll lift the rod up and pull the handle out. Alright, now we have to get this piece off right here. A lot of Civics have this design where there's a couple screws under there, so we have to get this piece off. And right in here, we just need to pop that in a little bit. Then we'll grab a little trim remover. We'll just tug on it gently. Try not to break it. And just pop the trim off just like that. Alright, we got to get this plug off. You can just grab it from underneath. Or press it from underneath. Just press that right there and it'll pop out. Alright, now that we got the trim piece off, there's usually a screw right here. Right at the end of my finger, but it's missing for this window switch. But that's not the one we want to worry about. We're going to go after that screw back there. We're going to get that one. And then right over here, if I can get a light in there, we're going to get that screw right there. 2 Phillips heads, so I'll grab a Phillips screwdriver and we'll get those 2 out. That's what they look like. And that frees the door where it's being held right there. Now we should be able to just grab the door panel. Just pop it loose and then it should hang like that. That's why we got to get those screws out, so it'll do this. And we'll have to pop this. You got to pop the plug through that little hole and then we'll lift it up off. Just like that. Alright, as you can see, car this old, somebody's been here before. But you can just kind of peel this back a little bit. And we should be able to work in here. Alright, if we look in the opening right here, that's our door lock actuator right here, and you can follow the wiring across, and there's the plug. So we'll disconnect this plug and do some checks, see if we got our powers and grounds right there. There, we just unplug it, and we'll do some power and ground checks right there. Alright, you can see I got my test light here. Now what I want to do is test these two wires coming in. So I mean, there's multiple ways you can do it. You can back probe it, you can front probe it with something, but I would not stick a test light in there, jam it in. That would break the connection. I do have these little leads that are made for this, where you can just plug them in like that. They're very nice, but you see you need a small little lead like that. Or another thing I like to do whenever I work on these, if I can salvage old parts, these you can see these leads are very common on Hondas, especially for the door locks. So you can see I have both the male and the female versions of this. See that? And so we'll just pick the right one, plug it in, and now I have two leads right there that I've already put on there. Okay, I got the test light connected so you can see it. Just one end right there and the other end just touching the tip. Can you guys see that light? I'm going up and down. It's consistent every time. Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with our powers and grounds. I think the problem is the door locks. These things go bad. Alright, we'll disconnect our setup here. And now that we know everything's good up to right here, our problem is this door lock actuator. Let's get this thing pulled out and get a new one in. This little lead that I showed you works in there is from this AES Wave. I think it's called the U lead test kit, something like that. But you can see it's got just about every connector you can think of in multiple, like 4 of each, all the way down. Works really well. Or like I said, whenever you fix these, pull them off, and then just put some connectors on there, and you can make your own little test leads. They do come in handy. Like I said, these are very common on Hondas. You see them a lot. I like using a standard test light for these. This is just a standard test light, even though it has a red bulb. Especially for intermittents like this, where that door lock is working sometimes and then it's not quite working. I mean, it's giving the appearance that maybe it's not getting the correct voltage all the time. That's why I wanted to put the test light on there and look, see if that light was coming on at the same brightness every single time, and it was every single time, no variation. So the problem is not in our circuit, the problem is definitely in the part itself. But that's an easy, quick way and cheap way to figure it out. And as you saw, I had power and ground at the door lock actuator. Now if I wouldn't have had power there, I would have had to go to the under hood fuse box, and I would have checked the number 51 fuse. I think that's a 20 ampere. That feeds the door lock control module, which is inside the driver's door. And if that was good, then I would have to go to the actual control unit and do power and ground checks there. Also, some models have keyless entry, some don't. On the keyless entry ones, there's another fuse. That's a number 14 fuse, and it's under the dash, and you got to check that one also. So anyway, let's get going. And here's the part number for this vehicle, for that left rear. So that's what I'll be putting in. You can see that's what it looks like out of the vehicle. And what I'm going to do, there's 3 screws, one right here, one right here, and one right here. They're small little tiny little Phillips screws. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull them out with a short stubby little Phillips screwdriver. You got to be careful. A lot of times Honda will put Loctite on there from the factory, so there's Loctite on these screws, which makes them difficult to get out, and you don't have any room in there. So that's the way I usually do it, is just like this. And then when you put it back in, you just have to fiddle with this connection right here. You can pull out the whole door lock assembly, but it's a lot more work, and sometimes you can open up a big can of worms doing that. And in my box of goodies here, I have, as you can see, screws for these little door lock actuators. The screws that go in here. You can see that's what they look like. In fact, there is a, if I can find it, yep, there's an actual OEM screw right there, and you can see the Loctite they put on there. Makes it really difficult to get it out and put it back in without stripping the heads out. That one, the head's probably stripped, that's why it's in there. But in any event, I keep these on hand just when I damage these. I already got some spares. The screw plus a little washer. Helps to have a little light or something with a magnetic base. You can just stick in there and put whatever position you want, because trying to work up in here can be difficult. I think what I'll do is I'll take a 10mm socket, and I'm going to pull this bracket right here off, just so when I'm reaching my hand in here, I won't be hitting that and cutting it. Just pop that loose. It broke. I'll have to get that off. So that's all it is, just like that. I just reached in there, some long needle nose, and pried that broken piece out. The new one comes with a clip, so you don't need it. Alright, as you can see, this is the new one. This is how it sits up in there, just like that. So you can see, if you look in there, you can see the other one. That's how it sits in there, just like that. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this stubby little Phillips screwdriver. I'm going to go in there and take off these 3 screws. You're going to have to work around this brace for the window, or the channel for the window. You have to work around that. Just go in there with a real short screwdriver. Make sure you put even pressure. I'll make sure to press on it as best I can and turn it slowly out, because with that Loctite on the screws, they want to strip out. So you got to definitely slow and even pressure is how I'm going to do it. There's no way I can film it. I can barely even see myself in there, but I'll just do it like that. Just don't get confused and start taking out the wrong screws. You want to take out just these top 3 right here, the machine screws. If you pull these out, you can see they look more like wood screws. And I'll see if I can point to them. Alright. Right there. I'm blocking my light. Right there. I think I'm on it. And then the one up there. Alright, so we want those 3 off. Like I said, it's difficult, it's tight. And then once we get them off, then you can just kind of pull the whole mechanism up a little bit from the bottom, and then pull down, and it will pop out of that pop out of the lock assembly in there. Because I don't know if you can see it, but right in there where my screwdriver's going, that's where the little latch is that moves back and forth. And I can unlock it and lock it. Can you see it moving in there? Maybe. So that's what we got to get back connected before we put it all back together. We got to make sure that connects up to that little rod inside there, or your door locks will not work. And it helps to have a magnet so you don't drop the thing all the way to the bottom of the door. course, I mean, I've never done that, but you know, in theory, you could drop these all the way to the bottom of the door and then never find them. And see, that's what it looks like. I wish I knew the size. I don't. I just go down to the local Ace Hardware, give them the screw and say, give me about 10 or 20 of these, and I just keep them in my box. And they give me the right exact size. Obviously they're metric, so make sure you get a metric one. And if they're stubborn, I'll hit them with a little bit of penetrating oil. Doesn't hurt to hit them with it anyway. And if you feel it's starting to loosen up or starting to strip your screw out, tighten it up just a hair, put a little bit of penetrating oil and work it back and forth, and then continue coming out. And whoever decided it was a good idea to have this set up, and especially put Loctite on there, they need to be put on garbage detail for a week. Thankfully, Honda came to their senses, and the newer setup has the door lock actuator out here with a rod going in. Makes it a whole lot easier. 5-minute job. There's two. And 3. And I usually just lift up on a little bit, push down. You'll pull it up from out of that. That's the little thing right there. There's a little plastic piece that hooks right onto it like that. So when we put it back up in there, we got to get it to hook on. And you can see what happens. It wants to do that. Sometimes hooking this back on can be a real pain. Sometimes you just get it on the first try. Sometimes it takes 100 tries. But this is the best way I found to take them out. Otherwise, you got to loosen these 3 screws, and sometimes those can be a bear. And you got to take the lock rods off, and you got to pop this out usually over here where that is, and that is no fun to take on and off. So it's up to you. If you want to disassemble the whole thing, you can do it, or you can do it this way. Alright, there's a shot inside there what it looks like with it off. And you can see there's the mechanism. I'm just working it back and forth, and if you can see, if I can get my hand in there, there's a little nub right at the end of my finger, right behind there. Not this part, but behind it. It's a tiny little nub. That's what we gotta get that rod connected to. Alright, there you can see, here's the new one. It goes into position just like that. And what I'll do is I'll go up under here. I'll slide it up in here like that and try to get in a position. And in order to set myself up for the best possibility of getting that connected back in there, because you got to get that little nub right inside this hole right here, I'll lift it up like that and try to leave it in that position. You can see it wants to go back down, but I leave it up. And then the door lock I'll leave in the up position, because in the up position it keeps that little nub down. Watch, I'll put it back down. You can see in the up position it takes that nub and it puts it down in position. So by keeping this up and that little nub down, that gives us the best possibility of getting it reconnected. And so usually you have to just feed this top piece right here, kind of have to feed it up in there and then try to get that connected. You'll have to move it around, and you'll feel it when it connects. And when it does connect, just hold it in place and then work your lock. And you can tell if it's connected because you'll see this working back and forth. If you're working that lock and this thing is just sitting there, or it's only moving a tiny little bit, you know it's not connected. This thing must be connected for it to work. And make sure you have plenty of coffee on hand. This is usually the part where there's a lot of cursing and a little bit of luck involved, and then you can get it in. I got it in. I don't want to move it because I don't want it to fall out of that. Alright, there you go, back installed. Took me about 3 tries to get that rod connected. And as you can see, it's back connected now. And as soon as I felt it get connected, I started this inside screw right here. This one right here. I just put it in there, got it started so that way it'd hold it in place, and then I got the other 2 started. That inside one that I started is a brand new one. The other 2 I was able to reuse. I did damage one of the screws getting it out. It's very difficult to get all 3 of those screws out pristine, but sometimes you can, but usually you damage 1 or 2. But anyway, that's how I did it. Before we go any further, let's connect this back up. See if it works. Alright, these things are wired for multiple applications, so sometimes these clips will be in the right place, other times, like in this case, it won't be. This one, we're going to set it right there. And get our connection plugged back in, and yeah, this one, it's just going to sit right there like that. Just make sure it's out of the way of the run channel. But yeah, sometimes, usually there'll be another place to clip it, but in this case there's not. And if this thing falls off, just kind of hooks back in there like that. Alright, make sure everything's plugged in. Give it the once over before you button it back up. Usually if your stuff's still tacky, you can just tack it back into place. Alright, make sure to retrieve your lights or anything else in there. We'll go ahead and get it backed up, or put back together, buttoned up. Actually, no. Before we get it buttoned back up, can't forget this. This is kind of important. So you just hold it in place in there and put the bolt through. Alright, just get it snugged up. That holds your window run channel in place. Now we can button everything up. Alright, we've got to make sure that this we put through the hole here, and this we get back in place. Oh, come on. Alright, so we got that fed through. And we'll just hang it up there like that. Just be careful not to pull it back out. Now we should be able to reach around and fish our plug through. There we go, plug is through. And while we're right here, we'll get this plugged back in so we don't forget. Alright, while we're right here, we'll put the 2 screws for our handle back in. These things just screw into plastic inserts. Once it bottoms out, that's it, stop. Otherwise you'll be buying plastic inserts. There. And I have a spare screw. I usually keep multiple lengths of screws. We'll go ahead and fix this missing screw for this window switch here. Same thing, when it bottoms out, stop. Alright, now it's back factory like it should be. Alright, we'll put the handle back in. What I'll do is I'll get it in place. I'm going to take that rod and I'm going to set the rod right in the hole there, and then I'll clip it back over. Just be careful, don't break these clips. So it's in. I'll flip it around. Alright, now it's connected. Now we can set it in and move it back into place where it belongs. So you push it in, and then if we can get it, there. Get it in, pull it back. And don't get the screws mixed up. This one has a little shoulder, if you can see right there. That's the one that goes in here. Same thing as always, bottoms out, stop. Alright, and the last piece, we'll get this clipped back in. It goes in like this, and as you can see, it's got that piece right there. So that has to hook in just like this, and everything kind of goes over. It just snaps right into place. That's how you do it. There you go. That's how I do these door lock actuators on these older Hondas. Just remember, if you ever do this job, patience. Have some patience. You have to have patience when you do these, because those little screws and that little latch can be frustrating. In any event, if you liked the video or it helped you out, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Thanks for watching. Alright, a couple of free tips for those of you that stuck around to the end. Now that you've got your old door lock actuator that's no good, just cut this off. Now you have a little test lead for the next one you do. And when you're putting these screws in, it's darn near impossible to take these screws, at least for me, and try to put them in there by hand. What I do, I put them on the end of my magnetic tip there, and I put it in, and then just pull it sideways like that and leave it in there like that. And then take your screwdriver and put them in. There you go. A couple of tips for those of you who stayed to the very end.